Okay, so lots of people. We just read from the Episcopal Church an article about basically not living in obedience. About we read an article that said we're committed to actually being disobedient in this regard, in regard to migrants. We're committed to being a place of sanctuary, and we encourage Episcopalians all over the country to be a church of sanctuary. We've talked about Martin Luther King today. We've talked about his that statement that he made, where basically it's perfection is the enemy of progress. This road that we're traveling is uneven, and it's unkept, and it's brand new to us. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in perspective. And we talked about what happened in Tulsa back in 1921 with the horrible massacre that happened there at Black Wall Street, and the theft and the violence and the murder and the fire. These are troubling times. We can see that. We know that these are troubling times. I mean, I think on Saturday I said that my impression from Trump is that he's just simply saying a million things, and it's to keep everybody off their guard. Now, yesterday I was coaching my daughter's basketball game. I've coached basketball for 30 some odd years, and I love doing it mainly because I love watching my kids play. I love watching all those kids grow and strive. I love, there's a moment for every child where the switch gets flipped and they become a basketball player. And it's so cool. If you are lucky enough, if you are fortunate enough to be there when that switch gets flipped, it's an amazing reward. Now, yesterday I was watching my daughter play, and I'm watching the other team bring the ball up the floor. And we're on defense. And Nyla, I'm watching her and I'm asking quickly, does she know who she's guarding? Because it's man-to-man defense. You can't play zone in this league, so it's man-to-man defense. And she's the only one that she's not really towing the right line. So I'm curious. I'm wondering if she's going to get called for this. I'm watching her. Does she know who her man is? Does she know who her player is? Does she know who she's guarding? And sure enough, she's got her one hand out to the person she's guarding, and she's got the other hand out to the ball, and she's looking at both. And so she's in this perfect triangle stance where she's between her player and the net, and she's between the ball and the net. She's great. If the person carrying the ball gets past their player, she's going to be able to step in and she's going to be able to guard. But she's also got her player close enough that if her player gets the ball, she's going to be able to be there to guard them too. It's perfect defense. That's exactly how you do it. And as her player walks and jogs around, tries to get open, Nyla stays within 3 or 4 feet of her, but never chases. Stays within 3 or 4 feet of her, maybe has to shift her hands, but she still knows where the ball is and she still knows where her player is. And the further her player gets from the ball, the further Nyla lets her player get from her, because she's less and less of a threat. Her player's jogging, her player's running, her player's doing cuts and doing moves, trying to get away from Nyla's watch. And all Nyla's doing is moving very purposefully, intentionally, and slowly. Keeping her player in her view, making sure she's in a good defensive position. A year ago, Nyla, with all of her energy, would have been chasing that player. She'd have been 3 inches from her. She'd have been all over her. She'd have been chasing, following that person around the entire time she was playing defense. She would run herself into the ground trying to keep up with the player she was guarding. And oftentimes Nyla, for whatever reason, finds herself guarding really good players. She usually finds herself guarding the top 1 or 2 players on the other team. And by chasing them, she wasn't able to offer an effective defense. She was wearing herself out, literally running herself down. As a coach, I know that playing defense is actually about rest. That's when you rest. You come down and you don't chase. You don't have to worry about it. Like in basketball, the goal isn't to stop your player from getting the ball. The goal is to stop your player from scoring. And even if your player scores, ultimately for a defense, it's not to It's not to stop them from scoring ever, because it's basketball. Like, lots of points get scored in basketball. The goal is not to be overwhelmed by the offense, not to let the offense run us into the ground. And that can happen when you chase your player. But if you're playing smart, you've got an eye on the ball, and you know who the player is you're guarding, and you have an eye on them. And you're taking your time, and you're being very purposeful, and you're being very intentional, and you're watching the ball movement, and you're watching your player move around the court. But you're not exhausting yourself chasing them. Here's why this is important. With social media being what it is, and with Donald Trump's thumbs being what they are, he is going to, every single day, say things that make us crazy. He is going to say things that will infuriate us. He is going to say things that will make us very afraid for ourselves and for our neighbors. He may launch into tirades about how he's going to do this and how he's going to do that. He may talk about how unfair the world is and how he's got to get rid of DEI and he's got to make sure that Christianity is the next is the greatest thing once again, and he's going to say things, and he's going to project things, and he's going to offer things, and he's going to suggest things, and those things are going to make us nuts. But we can't chase him. Don't waste your energy on chasing him. Wait for him to actually do something that matters. So again, in basketball, Nyla's player gets further and further away from the ball. Nyla gets further and further away from her player because her player is not a threat. But once that player starts streaking into the middle, all of a sudden, she's a danger. Nyla's with her. If that player starts V-cutting out to the ball, Nyla understands a pass is coming, a screen's coming, a cut's coming, something's happening. Now I'm going to react. I'm going to respond. Not react. I'm going to respond. That's what we do. Wait for the actual action. Wait for the actual move. Don't get caught up. Don't get tricked by his little cuts and his little dodges and his little words. Wait for him to move, and then respond to the movement as needed. A terrestrial traveler says it's the incessant, every day, over and over. It's so exhausting just to watch it. So wait for the real move. You'll know it. You'll know it. He'll have a pen in his hand. It'll be an executive order. Right? You'll hear that he's trying to do something through someone else. He gets on these rallies, he's just going to spew. He's just going to vomit all over us. That's what he does. And we get overwhelmed by that because it's gross. And I understand that. But that's his offense. His offense is all about overwhelming us so that he can score quick points when we don't even know what just happened. Right? Again, it's something that I see in basketball games all the time. If you overwhelm the defense, all of a sudden lanes open up. And before the defense even knows it's happened, somebody scored a basket. And you're not sure why. You're not sure how. It's just simply a matter that they overwhelmed you. Don't be overwhelmed by his constant, incessant word vomit. Slogan vomit, nonsense vomit. Let's look for the actual play. Let's look for what's really going down. Let's look for how they actually intend to score a point here. And then shut it down. Because that's the smart best way of playing defense. Don't let him exhaust you this time. Respond to him. Don't chase him. Respond to him. Don't react every time he offers more verbal, more social media diarrhea. Keep your distance. Keep your distance until the right time comes to close your distance. And we're not even getting into offense. We have to know how to knock them off balance. We'll get to that another day, I think. But today, please take care of yourself. Don't let them exhaust you. They're going to throw everything and the kitchen sink all at once every day. That doesn't mean you have to react to it all. Know your part. Know your role in the defense. And be intentional in living it out. Be intentional in playing the way that it needs to be played. Amen.